Greetings and welcome to MrRipper. I'm your host, Dave Makes Noises, and today it's time to put on our big damn hero britches as we find out the most badass things people's characters have done in a campaign. Go! I'll try to keep this as short as I can, but this is still going to be a bit of a story. Context: I was playing a level 11 Necromancy wizard, and our party of 5 ended up getting ambushed and completely overpowered by a bunch of bandits. The DM rolled ridiculously well that fight, and us not so much. Every other member of the party died, but my wizard turned invisible and ran to survive after everyone else had fallen, and the fight was clearly lost. Ava, my wizard, was obviously pissed because 4 of her friends just got murdered. So she then spent the better part of a week camping out in an abandoned cemetery she found, raising a small legion of 40-ish zombies and skeletons and using divination spells to learn exactly who the bandits were, who their families were, and where they lived. Ava then went to the village that the bandits lived in, leading her parade of undead through the streets but not attacking anyone. She wasn't going to murder an innocent village, she only had her specific quarry. Regardless, she went to the houses of every single bandit that had survived the fight with the party, abducted them and their families with the overwhelming numbers of undead minions, and brought them all to an empty warehouse. The bandits never even had any chance fighting back during any of the ordeal because they never had a moment to get their weapons or armor before Ava knocked in their doors like a Necromancer Kool-Aid man. Next, Ava proceeded to make the bandits watch as their family members got torn to pieces and eaten alive by Ava's zombies. Ava then reanimated the slaughtered family members, which included some of the bandits' children, which was kind of fucked up, I'll admit, and then had each of the bandits slowly, torturously murdered by their own zombified families while being held to the ground by dozens of other zombies. After that, she left the village without harming anyone else, went into the forest, and started working on reanimating the bodies of her fallen allies so she could try and find someone or something to resurrect them. Walking into a sacred temple of the gods with a handful of undead took a lot of explaining, but she eventually managed to scrounge up pretty much all the party's gold to pay for all the materials and labor needed to bring back her friends. Moral of the story: don't give a reason for a necromancer to hold a grudge against you. 4 of us became the horsemen of the apocalypse because one party member was a huge fan of Darksiders. I, the barbarian, was War. The gunslinger was Strife. The warlock was Fury. The wizard became Death. This all started because Strife, well, before we actually ascended to godhood because this got out of control really fast, convinced people that I was War. And there were only 2 rules of war. 1. Do not piss off War. 2. Follow Rule 1. Always can only think back to the time my dear dwarf champion went berserk on a troll, killing it in a single turn. Level 10 at the time with 2 weapon fighting, dual wielder feat, and a homebrew axe that my DM made way stronger than I wanted it. The troll had just knocked the party's ranger to 0 hit points, picked him up, and started to walk over a wood bridge. My dwarf, now being really pissed, runs after the troll, catches up and begins to unleash a whirlwind of axe slashes. Triple critical, 20, 20, 19. Action surge. 2 more hits, even using the inspiration I saved from session 1 to make sure I really kill the creature that hurt my friends so much. I basically cut off both arms, legs, and the head. DM decided it would be too much damage for the troll to regen, and I was the last one standing, and declared it dead. A nearby bandit leader was like, "Well, damn, I don't want to fight that guy," and retreated. After training for a long time, we had to fight a massive army of monsters, bullywugs, ogres, wargs, hobgoblins, etc. that had been given extra power by the demon queen Zuchtmoy. There were thousands of them and only 6 of us and a small army of about 150 NPCs. But we were high-level characters, all being around level 17 for the war's biggest battle. We absolutely decimated that army in only a few minutes. Our warlock provided support and covering fire. The life cleric stuck with our small army to provide assistance where they could. The sorcerer, yours truly, unleashed a full-on aerial assault, unleashing massive AoEs left and right. The fighter was jumping all over the place, from ogre to ogre, back cutting down anyone dumb enough to get in his way, and the war cleric was right on the front lines, tearing through monsters with blade barrier. We were doing so well that the DM decided to start rolling wisdom saves for entire regiments of monsters to decide if they were going to keep fighting or flee in fear. The entire army fled after the sorcerer cast Meteor Swarm and wiped out over 100 monsters himself. If scaring off an entire army after only fighting them for a few minutes doesn't make you feel badass, I don't know what will. There's been too many to choose from in my current campaign. I could go with how last session my character and her love interest are the reason the entire party is alive after having fought a CR-17 dragon at level 10, but that one was more just intense than badass. This story, though, is about Achilles, another PC's, escape from prison. They had been arrested for killing the town's corrupted baron. To make a long story short, he single-handedly managed to run and fight his way through about 50 guards while buck-naked and carrying an unconscious woman and all his gear over his shoulders. The party had decided to wait a day or two before trying to break in and rescue him, but while shopping for supplies, they encountered him while he was still running through town back towards the inn. Still naked and carrying all the stuff. It was intense, thrilling, and badass as fuck. He had just barely escaped. The final guard to attack him rolled just one under his AC while he was on his last couple HP and just missed his heel while climbing the tall fence. One of my players accepted a deal with an artificial spirit created to manage one of many towers releasing dark magic around the world for centuries. The spirit, named Elkios, wanted a body to leave the tower and take revenge on his creator for the life of loneliness he gave him. The deal was simple.
Give me a body, and I promise I won't hurt any of you. If you feel like resisting, on the other hand, I shall take what I need by force.
Elkios showed them the power he could draw from the tower a couple times before and killed an NPC the party really liked, so PCs were somewhat scared of that potential fight. Jet, the human sorcerer who accepted the deal, thought he and the spirit could cohabitate, but he never talked about that out loud. It was only during the ritual that he realized his mistake. The spirit wanted to keep the body to himself. Resigned, Jet walked down a dark tunnel within his mind, side by side with the spirit who was leading him toward the final light. To save his friends, Jet was going to sacrifice himself.
End of the line, I guess,
he said, before asking to shake hands with the spirit to seal the deal right before the light. Elkios accepted with a smirk. He was finally going to be free. That's when Jet's player says, "It's my mind, right?" I cast Shocking Grasp. Ensue a magical duel and several will saves against a domination spell. In the end, Jet got the deal he wanted. Both him and the spirit were inhabiting his body, except they can't stand each other even more than before. The moment he said I cast Shocking Grasp was simply too good to even think about denying him the right to use this spell here. This is my first time DMing, and I'm so glad I started when my players create moments like this one, and there's been quite a few during these last 10 months. Alrighty, here we go. My level 3 rogue single-handedly defeated an Oni. Long story short, our party is in an adventuring guild. We got a job to go find out why children were going missing as of late in another town. We witnessed one of the kidnappings, and the party followed. However, my rogue stayed back, as they had heard rumors that an Oni was responsible for this, and went and found a cart of rum. The DM never intended for us to actually fight the thing, so he was curious. As I follow the path the party had taken, I find the clearing the Oni was in. I rammed the cart of rum into the Oni and set it on fire with my torch, scaring it away, and effectively defeating it. Not extremely badass for me as player, but the character felt badass as hell. Bada boom, the big brain bugbear was making his way through a dungeon with his party, when suddenly the huge rocks swung in from the sides and almost hit Bada, separating him from the party. Nobody managed to manipulate the mechanism or the trigger in order to open up the way again, until Bada boom used his big brain to just push the rocks to the side again to where they have been before almost smashing him, and walked through while holding up the stones. In Pathfinder Kingmaker, we'd stumbled upon the nest of a rook. At first, we tried to show that we were not dangerous, hoping that it would leave us alone without much success. When we were sure it was going to attack us, I ran in front of the group and tried asserting dominance over the rook by intimidating it. It failed its contested roll miserably, and this is how I glared at a rook so hard that I prevented a fight from even starting between it and our group. A few minutes later, I tamed it, and it will now respond to my call for help if I'm within 50 miles of its nest. Previous campaign. Kevin Helmington, infamous character because any of the crazy antics in that campaign were his doing. Every
single time.
The best one, though, was the party was guarding a caravan that was attacked by a rook. This absolutely insane badass decided that he'd run at the wreckage of a cart and use it to jump up in the air and land on the rook. Nat 20. So while on top of the rook, he jams a dagger into it and starts using the hilt of the dagger like the control stick of a fighter jet and actually starts flying the damned thing. Eventually, he pointed the rook into a dive into a lake that was known to have a dragon turtle in it. He gets thrown off the rook in the impact, goes skipping across the lake, and gets knocked unconscious against a tree. The dragon turtle surfaced long enough to make a meal of the rook and then went back under. I ruled that he was knocked unconscious on impact with the tree just to keep him from doing anything else crazy in that encounter. Bonjour, badasses, and welcome to the end of another installment of Mr. Ripper. Thank you for watching the whole video. If you or somebody you know have gone full badass, we want to know about it in the comments section below. And if you've got another story you think we should narrate, please share it in our official subreddit, r/Mr. Ripper. If you want more of these sorts of shenanigans, you can now find us on TikTok at Mr. Ripper D&D. And of course, as always, my TikTok is Dave Makes Noises if you want some more of this candy. If you're a DM or player looking for a group, check out Mr. Ripper's group finder in the link below. And I hope this week you spend some time improving something you feel needs more work. Please sub for Nat 20s, ring the bell for Notification Squad special access. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.